boys and girls, we are here on a fine, we are on a Tuesday. That's 2 days into the work week. Thank goodness. But put that aside. We're home. It's post work. And we are closer, not only to the weekend and wrestling, my friends. Well, I don't know how much wrestling we're going to get, but it's Christmas weekend. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But look who we have. Our first interview of the week out of 3. And this is a guy I've never met. We love doing that. We love meeting brand new talent that we've never spoken to. It gets us, because this isn't my show, my friends. This is your show. This is for the fans. I don't care if my name is on it. But with all of that said, this is Stir in the Pot with Don Kincaid. And my very special guest tonight, woohoo, Landon Hale. Thank you for joining the show and spending some time on the week of Christmas. This is amazing, my friend.
Oh, absolutely. Bringing on the holiday cheer, brother. Absolutely.
Yes. Yes, that's how we're going to do it this week, baby. It's all about the holiday cheer. Not that I have any theme. There's no lights and no Santa or nothing, but we've got some custom made pops of myself and my nephew, Big Jacob P. We've got the Stir in the Pot championship right there. We've got a little DK action. I know you can't see that, but a friend of mine handcrafted that. Beautiful artistry. And then we also have 2-time STP champion, Yorick. He's a friend of mine. Signatured by Hamlet Hurts You. So that's our set. And we have, I don't know if you know who Dave Cole is. Love me some Dave Cole. This is one of his original OG Dave Coles, and that's the Ultimate Pack. The Ultimate Pac-Man, like the Ultimate Warrior / Pac-Man. I mean, come on.
That's pretty cool. That's dope.
Isn't
that's
that
badass? That's badass.
That's beautiful. I didn't mean to digress about the beautiful, extravagant set I have over here.
It's holiday season, brother. You got to dig into it. Get wild with it.
Yes, Mr. Hale. Thank you so much. And as I stated at the beginning, we've never met each other. We've never talked. I think we've only chit-chatted a little bit on the DMs. I'm sorry for getting a little crazy on the DMs. My bad. Hey, I'm sorry. But we have a mutual friend that kind of connected us, and that's been happening over the past couple of weeks. And that is, I love to call him Jackie G, but he is known as Joey G. I love me some Joey G, and thank you, sir, for this connection, Jackie G. That's for a different time. Jackie G, thank you for hooking us up right here, and I cannot appreciate my brother Joey G. I always flip it around because I got to give my man some love. Joey G, love me, him and his podcast, Sign Rip Podcast. Go check it out. I know he'll be up for another season. I think he's taking just a small hiatus right now. Yeah, you got to take a break once in a while. I mean,
absolutely.
You as a wrestler, my man, you've got to feel that. Let's just kind of jump into that because I don't write nothing down. I've never even researched yet. I don't look at the matches. I don't look at the stuff. I just kind of go off the cuff, and it's a little dangerous, but we like to have fun. So let's just kind of start right there because you as a wrestler, you're running, you're working, you're driving, you're going to all the promotions. You want to do all the shows. You want to do all the promotions. Taking a break is like some of the best stuff for your body physically and your body mentally. Could you talk to us about that? Because sometimes you just got to kind of take a break.
Yeah, absolutely. And with all of this that's going on, like very blessed, very fortunate to, do what I love to do. And that's, go out and travel, like you said, being on the road. And that's sort of a gift to myself every single day, because every day feels like Christmas when I get to go out. And that sounds very cliche when I say that, but it does feel like Christmas every time that I go out, because the adrenaline rush, again, to go out and perform in front of fans, it's amazing. But it is good to have that wind down and to be able to, just relax and be to yourself. And then for me this year, so on the, I guess now we're jumping into like personal and whatever stuff. So me and my fiance, we're getting married in April. So, which is awesome. I'm excited.
Congratulations from STP and everybody. Hopefully it's just not my dad and his dog watching. And if it is, I apologize. But congratulations from everybody from STP. That's
totally
awesome.
Fine. All the appreciations and dog treats and barks as well. Love it. Yes. But yeah, so it's a little bit different this year because usually what I do during Christmas and during the holiday is that I'll get to go home, because right now I live in Georgia. I'm in chiropractic school, so I don't get to see my family as much. So I drive up to Kentucky during the breaks, and I get the chance to see the family and to relax and wind down. So 2019 was the last time that we got to all hang out together and just to be as a family.
Okay.
Then obviously last year with the whole COVID situation, not a lot of families could come in. Everyone's different with their views of COVID, so we really didn't get the chance to actually hang out. So I was spending time in Massachusetts. That's where my fiance's from. And so this year we made it to where I just got back in today from Kentucky because one, I had a wrestling show, my last show of the year in West Virginia. It's called All Star Wrestling. It's out of like Harts, West Virginia, Madison, West Virginia, and then also my cousin, which he's a wrestler, former wrestler, but now he's in the Marines, and so I got to see him before he gets to go back to camp. And so
Awesome.
I decided to spend time up there, and I had a few days off, so I decided to come down here. And my fiance's working. I'm trying to get a job so that way I can be able to help with the wedding, and because it's a little expensive, $20,000. So the wedding isn't cheap, my friend. That's for sure. I'm not saying that. Guys and girls, listen out there. Listen, whenever you're getting married, the weddings are not cheap. It is expensive. So with that, it's so expensive. But the thing is that we're working together, and she's working on top of going to school as well. So we're just gonna spend time here and just enjoy ourselves together. But it is good to get away from the wrestling scene a little bit, just to recoup. I mean, I will be training on the side just so that way I can still keep still keep the gears a turning. So it's definitely one of those things where like I'll still keep flowing with things of wrestling when it comes to like training, but just to wind down, it's definitely good for the body, definitely good for the soul, just because you do so much to yourself. You go out there and you perform. You're putting miles on your car. You're driving on the road so many hours out of the weekend, and so it's just good to be in a house, be in a home with someone you love, and just to relax and just kick back.
It does, because it starts here, and I know there's a lot of physicality in wrestling, but in all honesty, when you first start winding down, when you have a plan set and you're like, okay, this is my on X date, this is my last event before I do this, maybe this little hiatus, a little break, or a little whatever. Once that happens, this gets hit first before this really starts feeling it. So I always say, without this, and part of the physical package, it's so hard to overcome whatever fears you have and be pursuing wrestling or continuing your career, or how come this gimmick isn't really getting over, or whatever things that are running through your brain. As soon as you start to wind down just a little bit, everything starts to kind of come together. And I'm not a wrestler, and I'm not trying to speak for wrestlers, but talking to the athletes and the performers, I kind of get that. And it really, and like you said, spending the time with the loved ones is really where it starts to like, oh God, I needed this so much right now, But you don't realize it though, that you need it until you actually take that break.
Absolutely. And like you were saying, us as wrestlers, and I'm sure there's a majority of us, or a lot of us, or all of us that can actually agree, is that we are our own worst critics, especially when it comes to in-ring performance. Like you were saying, if the crowd enjoyed it, if they were behind you, and that's what I do every time. Like after a match, I'll get in the car, and like my fiance, one of the best supporters that I can have in wrestling, like helps me sell merch. She's literally numero uno. She's the best. And, like I'll sit with her, and the fact is that she's never been into wrestling until she started dating me, and she was like, oh, okay, let's see what he's like. Sees my performance, like, oh, okay, he's good. But then down the line, she sort of helps me with the business and stuff like that. But like driving up the road, she'll even tell me, she's like, Landon, that was an amazing match. I'm not saying that just to blow smoke up your ass. I'm being serious. It's a great match. Other times she'll be like, Landon, what the hell was that? That wasn't great. Like she'll be brutally honest with me. And then like I'm sitting there, she may be napping, and I'm just thinking, like I'll play like rewinds in my head of the match. And then like sometimes even to the venue, I'll think of like things that's going on in my head, like, okay, like what can we do? Like what's tonight gonna be like? This is the new venue. What's the crowd gonna be like? And especially, going into a different venue, like trying to get that baby face fire, especially at a venue that you've never been before, you try to get out of that, like, okay, let's not see if he looks like a psychopath. Let's see if he can actually get in with stardom and see how he builds himself up going into it. And then after the show, it's like, oh, did the crowd like it? Were they into it? And then there's people that'll be like, yeah, Landon, you're thinking too much of yourself on like that aspect. You did great. And so it's just kind of like, we are our own worst critics when it comes to stuff like that. So that's all in a nutshell.
Everything you just said there, I kind of toss and turn questions as things go because I don't write anything down, as I've stated. There's about 6 questions that I kind of had kind of lined up, and you answered basically almost all of them in one in one sitting because there's so many topics that you just spoke of that I enjoy talking about wrestling when it comes to the performers and such. First and foremost, the support from your fiance is just absolutely amazing. I love hearing that kind of stuff. I always talk about the support system behind the performer because I'll always say it from my vantage point, and I know there's a lot of sports and a lot of professions out there. Universally, I feel, in my opinion, that trying to become a singles wrestler is one of the hardest things in the universe to do. And you spoke upon other topics that I'm going to get into why. And one of them is marketing. She's there on board doing that with you. Um, just your physical, the mental, the gear, the gimmick, the whole thing, everything that it takes to become a wrestler. It's just so entirely hard. And the perseverance, the sacrifices you do at home with the family and the children, and maybe you had to go to a play for your son or daughter or whatever, and you had to miss that because I got to go to West Virginia and do this thing. So, I mean, and plus much more. But that support system, my friend, I absolutely love that you've touched upon that because that is one of my all-time favorite topics to talk about on STP. And it just warms my heart that because without that, it's that much harder to persevere in that career of wrestling.
Absolutely. And so like I'll even back it up a little bit. So when we first started, and so it's funny because so we're both in chiropractic school and we're graduating in March. So she was a bartender and I, pro wrestling. So once COVID hit, we sort of, everything just stopped for a second and that brought us together. I mean, and I'll 6 times the charm, let's say, because I try to go after her. She calls it. I'll joke about this too. She calls it country stupid because, like, you know how sometimes you don't get the hint on things, and you just keep being persistent, and then she's like, "Damn, this guy won't get the hint." And so, luckily, she gave me a chance. But no, she the first match that I asked her to come to, she missed it by the first she missed the match of mine, and it was like the next match after, and she missed it right off the bat. But then the next match she came to, she's like, Landon, you're good. Because she's never seen me before. Again, like you've never seen me. And it's kind of like you can tell people, hey, I'm a great wrestler, but you kind of take it with a grain of salt because they can come in there and they're like, oh, yeah, they're God's greatest thing since sliced bread. But then the others, they shit the bed. Like, let's be real. So it's kind of like you tell people that and they're thinking, oh, okay, let's just hold the brakes and let's just see what we have. And so she was awesome to be supportive of me and all this stuff. And she's so she's wonderful. And like, she'll help me sell my merch. She'll tell me what's working for me. She'll tell me like, hey, you need to bring this back. You need to start using this. And, and with us winding down, it may be a little bit harder. Cause like I've got some bookings like the month of January and some of February and some of March. But once we get to the March and April phase, it may be a little wonky there just because we'll be moving to Massachusetts. And she's like, Landon, we have to set some of this aside. And that's just because, you're going to do great with wrestling. And it seems like the wheels are turning, but, we're getting ready to get married and, we're getting ready to graduate. And it's like, once we move to Massachusetts and we get everything taken care of and squared away, especially with being doctors and working in chiropractic offices and being able to do that, then she's like, you can wrestle as many weekends as you want. And you can just, jump in the water head first. You can do whatever you want. So it's kind of like playing it smart on that end. So she keeps me sane too when I get too wrestling crazy.
That more boys and girls, this is what we love on this show, my man. Yes. Love hearing all of that kind of stuff. Love it. And not only that, you keep mentioning Massachusetts. I'm from Connecticut. I go to Massachusetts a lot for wrestling. And I mean, not to take anything away from the rest of the country, but no, it's a pretty damn hotbed for wrestling, my man. And you're going to be so much closer because you're talking Kentucky, you're talking Georgia, you're talking, yes, this way, my man, come this way. So that's awesome. Second off, congratulations to both of you with this whole chiropractic venture. I mean, that's just another life-changing experience. Congratulations on that.
Thank you, sir.
And that kind of leads me into how does Landon Hale take on chiropractic school, ready to graduate, being a professional wrestler. My man's getting married. Um, I don't have much hair. That's why I wear this hat. You've got to be pulling your hair with both hands, my friend. I mean, you've got so much on your plate. How are you? How are you juggling all of this at the same time?
Tons of caffeine, brother. No, I mean, like, and I'm being serious when I say that too. So I could technically give you a rundown of a full week of my normal schedule if you're cool with that.
Hey, this is what we're here for. We want to learn about the talent. And you know what? When I say we'll pull them back the curtain, my man, you're really digging deep with us and you're talking to us like a couple of friends just hanging out, talking Mr. Hale, talking some wrestling. And I love this. So please hit me with whatever you've got.
Absolutely. So we just got finished taking part 4 boards. So we take 4 parts of boards. 3 of them are written, and well, not written, but it's on a computer. And then part 4 you have to take at a university. And this is like a little sidebar, and then I'll get to my weeks. But back in November, um, so we had to schedule our part 4 boards, and you have to take it at a chiropractic college. And we were, wanting to take it at Life University. That's where we go to school in Georgia, and it's 15 minutes up the road. So whenever we signed up, we had to do 4 colleges of our choices that we want to take part 4 boards. So we did Georgia, school in Florida, the main campus that's first started at chiropractic, which is in Davenport, Iowa, called Palmer, and and then there's another one in Dallas, Texas, called Parker. So whenever we signed up at the last minute, so we ended up getting Iowa. So we drove 11 hours from Marietta, Georgia, to Davenport, Iowa, in like the weekend of November 12th, 13th, 14th. And we had to do 2 days worth of looking at X-rays and diagnosing it, along with the condition going along with it and the care. And then the next day we had to do clinical settings, to where we go in and we talk to a mock patient and to see what's going on with them. So we'll do like a case history. We will do orthopedic and neurological testing or visceral testing, and then we'll do like setups for adjusting. And we got our part 4 scores back, and we both passed with flying colors, and so we could pretty much practice anywhere in the state if we wanted to. So pretty much our rundown is, so we go by quarters and not semesters. So we go, rather than January to May and August to December like most schools do, we go quarters. So we go 10 weeks followed by a week of finals, and then spring and fall we'll have a week break, and then summer and winter we'll have a 3-week break, which right now we're on a 3-week break. This is technically our first week break. But I'm actually going into the office tomorrow. But what we do is we have something called peak, and that's like another word for internship. So my internship is in Rome, Georgia, which is an hour north of me. So usually what I do during the week, on Monday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, I get up at 7:40. It's like 7:30, 7:45, eat breakfast, drive an hour to Georgia. I'm there from 9:30 up until 6:30, which I have breaks in between. And during my lunch, I'll either work out or I'll study or do something. Then I drive back home. And then while I drive back home, my fiance's working, and she's also doing her peak, which for her, luckily, it's literally right across the street. So she's got it made. So she's doing that, and then she's getting to go bartend. So she's been doing a lot on her plate. And then I come back home, and then I'll either cook dinner or I'll clean or help out around the house. And then Tuesdays are my free days, so I'm usually either like working out or I'm helping around the house, studying, or in that sense, I'll either go to wrestling training on Tuesdays, and then Fridays I'll have that off. So usually that day it may be a date night if I'm not booked that day, or we may just hang out around the house and just see what's going on. And then Saturday, which I'm technically now going back into Saturday morning peak. So it'll be 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. in Rome, Georgia. And then from there, I will either go to the next town where I'm actually wrestling at, or I'll just come back home. But most of my Saturdays that I have in the month of January, I'm booked. So I'm just driving to like either I'm wrestling in, let's see, Indiana, I'm wrestling in Tennessee, I'm wrestling in like North Georgia. Yeah. So I stay busy, but on top of that too, and this is another godsend as well for my fiance Jordan, and so like we'll cook, but she does like 95% of the cooking, because I'm not saying I'm a horrible cook, but she likes to take control and make sure that everything's cooked properly. So she preps our meals throughout the week, and so she has a lot on her plate. So we work together as a team when it comes to like when I can't do one thing, she does the other, vice versa. So she's been amazing for real. And so then that's usually my week.
More love with all of that being said. There's one thing that you did not mention in any of your schedule, and it's one word: sleep. I do not hear the word sleep, my man. Are you a vampire?
No, not even close. No, I'll
Okay.
sleep. So usually for me, like a normal hourly schedule would be like Mondays, Wednesdays. I'd say like Mondays and Wednesdays. Let's see here. Like Sundays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, because I gotta get up early that morning. I'm usually asleep at like midnight, wake up at 7. So I'll get at least like a 6-7 hours of sleep.
All right.
And then the days I don't have to worry about getting up so early the next day, I'm usually getting like at least 8 or 9 hours of sleep or trying to catch up on rest. Yeah.
All right. I was just checking on a brother. I mean, because I did not hear sleep in any of your schedule at all.
Yeah. I get some sleep. Is it enough? Hell no. But it's sleep.
We've been talking, boys and girls. This is actually probably the most different STP I've ever had within the first half hour, because we've legit talked real life stuff with Mr. Hale right here for the past almost 22 minutes. We don't get that. I mean, we do get it in sprinkles from other talents, but we've just kind of really sat back and very comfortably talked about like your life, legit your behind the scenes life. And I thank you so much for sharing all of that. It's just absolutely amazing that you can come on and share that with the fans, because that's what it's all about on this show, just to get to know the talent. But if we can pull the curtain back, that's even a bonus. So being able to talk like this, I do appreciate it, especially us meeting for the first time. But there's something that we really haven't kind of spoken about. Wrestling and Mr. Landon Hale, we've been kind of, we kind of, again, I don't write anything down, and this is what happens.
Right. Right.
So this wrestling, I'd like to kind of get into, because I kind of came up with my dad with wrestling. He brought me to my first event and doing the TV thing. And, you know, back then, I mean, I'm a little bit older than you are. I'm assuming. I got a little grays here. So I'm assuming I'm a tad older than you are. So I'm watching the TV where you had the little clicker and you had to go. And I know you don't know what that's about, but you don't, do you?
I think we had like the box TV where it only goes up to like 13 channels. I remember that.
All right, not that bad. Because you had the main knob where you pow, 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 pow. But then you had the second.
I've seen those.
Yes. And you had the second one. It was like an AK. You go through the channels. And man, if you got some staticky, snowy AWA, I was glued to that sucker.
Right.
So that was my time growing up in wrestling. And so kind of give us, how did you get into wrestling? Was it your pop or a sibling, or how did you get into it?
So funny that you mentioned that. So and this is kind of like I wouldn't say, I guess it's kind of an emotional backstory. So just bear with me. I'm not gonna like belt out crying, but this is definitely one of my favorite stories to tell, is how I got into wrestling. So when I was about 4 or 5 years old, so my dad, he was a big fan of wrestling, and we were more of WCW than WWF. So we were more of like NWO, Rey Mysterio Jr., Chris Jericho, Eddie Guerrero, you name everybody on the WCW roster. And that was one of the first games that I would play on the Nintendo 64 was WCW NWO Nitro. Yes, I loved it. But yeah, so we grew up watching it, and I remember my dad giving me like a life size. I wouldn't even say life size, but I was like a 3-foot doll that I would just wrestle with. So I was even training when I was like 5. So I was ready. I was born for this. So growing up, I would watch a lot of wrestling with him. I remember the first match that I watched. It was I'm very specific and very vivid with my with my details when it comes to I remember certain things. like, you can tell me, like, I can tell you what I had for breakfast specifically. There's sometimes I'm just like, oh, you said this, but like ADHD kicking in. But then there's other times where I'm just like, hey, I'm very specific with what I know. And I remember watching like a Bash at the Beach VHS, and it was like best of Bash at the Beach moments. And I
Okay.
remember seeing Rey Mysterio Jr. and Psychosis wrestle, and I was like, I'm in love. Let's see where this takes us. So I watched wrestling with my dad for a couple of years, and unfortunately, he passed away when I was 7. Um, he was. It's okay, thank you. Yeah, he was 48. He had a heart attack, so he was very 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 young.
Okay.
So like I guess through that time period of just not really watching wrestling, I didn't really like get back into it just because of that little phase. I got back into it. I remember going to a basketball tournament in 3rd or 4th grade, and I remember seeing advertised Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and Chris Benoit at WrestleMania 20, and I was like, oh man, like I didn't see what would, and then all of a sudden like popped up with Saturday Night Velocity when they still had that, and it was like Rey Mysterio and 3 other guys in a fatal 4-way, and I was like, I remember this guy, Rey Mysterio. So, and then so after seeing that, I was hooked on it. I found out Raw was like on Monday nights, and I think SmackDown was on Thursday nights, and so I'd watch that all the time. And I grew up watching that consistently, and then I guess I was back and forth during my high school years, and then college I would still keep up with it.
All right.
So it so in my area of Kentucky, it's not really the most popular when it comes to wrestling. So like you stated, and it's facts. In the Northeast, Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Maine, those places are hotbeds for wrestling. In the South, you'll definitely have some of your, like a few promotions that are definitely awesome to watch, like PWX. There's a promotion I work for, PWU or Pro Wrestling Union in South Carolina. There's action wrestling. There's so many different places that you can go in the South, but Kentucky itself, you really don't have a lot of wrestling like fans. So it's more of like they'd rather go like four wheeling. They'd rather go to local basketball games. They'd rather go to a concert. They don't want to go to a wrestling event unless WWE comes into town. But
Yeah.
like local wrestling, like independent wrestling, there's really not that much. And I'd say there's at least 2 or 3. So one day, and this was like it was like 3 years ago in the summer. One of my friends, he's a local wrestler in my hometown back home in Kentucky, and he made a post saying like compare 2 wrestlers and just name one and I'll tell you. So I was like, okay, I named 2 wrestlers, and then I just kept typing just like random wrestling stuff, just kept typing on the comments, kept typing, and all of a sudden I was like, okay, Landon, you have one life to live, and I just graduated from Morehead State University. I got my bachelor's in exercise science, so I was just like, okay, like I'm getting ready to. I've already applied to chiropractic school. I'm getting ready to move to Georgia, so I'm just like, you know what? I have one life to live. Let's see what it's about. So I shot him a message, and I was like, hey, how do you get into wrestling? And then he was like, come with me. Come with me on this day. I think it was like the 1st of July, and I will teach you how to take your first few back bumps. Like not train me, but show me how to take a few back bumps. I was like, okay, sure. And funny enough, it was backyard wrestling, which I love saying that. Like my first bump was in a wrestling ring in a backyard. Um,
Yep.
and it was actually at one of my friend's house, which unfortunately he passed away this year back in September, which he was only like 30 something. So that broke my heart too, just saying it. But we set the ring up in his backyard, and so like I took my first bump and I was like, ow, this hurts like hell. But I was like, I love it. And like it just literally being in that ring felt like I was that 5-year-old kid wrestling with Kevin Nash. I just felt like everything felt natural to me, hitting the moves and everything else like that. Obviously, I didn't get too crazy, but I was like, okay, this is nice. And my friend that passed away, whenever he came up, he was just like, oh man, this is like, are you kayfabing me on this? I was like, no, this is his first day wrestling, and then so it was just literally just messing around, and funny enough, I needed a license at that time. So now that's just a joke that me and my buddy Adam, and then my friend that passed away, Mitch, we would make the joke saying like, hey, let's get a picture together. And so you would have to have your Kentucky wrestling license in order to train or to wrestle. So when I
Right.
posted that picture whenever he passed away, I was like, this is our joke saying that we just got finished doing P90X. And so that way no one so that way no one knew that we were actually wrestling. But no, but after that day though, I tried to get a hold of him, and I got my wrestling license, everything taken care of. And I remember the first time that I went to a wrestling show. Um, didn't like I did get the chance to wrestle, and that's just because I didn't get proper training. So my buddy Adam Newsom, he was telling me, hey, you need to go over to St. Paul, Virginia. There's a guy named Mike Sampson there. And he also went on the Indies as Iron Cross, a very old school guy, love him to death. And
Okay.
he taught me the very bread and butter, like basic 101, like wrestle, like basically like you see people do the tactical drop down or the hip toss, everything like that. Taught me all of that. I got the basics down, and I only had 2 training sessions. And then the next show that they had, they were doing some wrestling tournament for the local. It's called Bluegrass Championship Wrestling, and it was their heavyweight championship. And I said, okay. So I drove down. I was hoping to get a spot, and one of the promoters, it was like the promoter's wife, was like, "Hey, you have your license. We want you to be a ref." And I was kind of bummed because, again, you got to start somewhere, but everyone wants to be like, oh, like I want to start at the top.
Right.
So I was kind of bummed about it, but there's a guy, and always shout out to these two, JT Walker and Eric Porter, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have gotten my first shot at being in the ring. So we get in the ring, and this was the time that they actually set up everything on time, and we got in the ring to like mess around and just because I know some people want to like warm up and go over stuff. And so when I got in the ring with him, he's like, okay, lock up with me. He was talking to me. He's like telling me what I need to do. I did everything that they wanted to. They were impressed, and they were like, hey, how many times have you trained? I'm like, that was just my second day. And so they're like, we want you in that tournament. So not only was I in the tournament after just 2 days of wrestling or 2 days of training, but I also got to win my first match. Didn't win the tournament, but it was sort of like my peak of going into it. And then had a few more training sessions, then the second time that I wrestled for them, I won a Rumble, and I ended up fighting for the heavyweight championship, which that was sort of my send off to go to Georgia. So then, as I came down to Georgia after October, that was like September, October, I was trying to see what my schedule would look like with wrestling training and school, because this was my first time stepping into chiropractic school, so I didn't know what I was expecting. So I was looking into different schools. I saw like face-to-face wrestling, what's now called Nightmare Factory. Back then it was like One Fall. WWA 4, which I'm at there now training under AR Fox. And so the first school that I looked into, it was All Pro Wrestling, All Pro Championship Wrestling, and that was under Robert Gibson of the Rock and Roll Express. So I wrestled, and I trained under them for a few days or a few weeks, and it was more of like once every like 2 or 3 weeks, just because I want to see, because they say that like the first quarter of classes is the hardest, and that's just because they want to weed out the weak people. And so everything was good there. I didn't really go to any of the shows, and there are shows affiliated with All Pro Championship Wrestling. That's like the school shows. And then January came by, and I was like, okay, I think I got everything taken care of with getting acclimated with school and with wrestling. So I went to my first show, and I was just supposed to run security. I was supposed to be able to take the gimmicks to the back and, sit down and enjoy the show. So someone didn't show up, and the first rule of wrestling of the biz is bring your gear. I brought it with me. And I made my debut in Georgia at Robert's promotion as myself, and it was for the APCW Tag Team Championships. And then I guess from there they were trying to build me up into a storyline, kind of like with Dusty Rhodes, the Midnight Rider gimmick. And so I went as the Georgia Avenger, and so lost my career early, like later on, like a few months down the road. Lost, and one of the guys cheated to beat me, and so he put his career on the line. I had to put mine on the line. I lost. I was under the hood for 3 months, came back, and I rose to glory, and then I ended up becoming a heavyweight champion at the end of 2019. So only 11 months or 10 months in Georgia, and I got to become APCW heavyweight champion under Robert Gibson's promotion. And then February, dropped it to a guy named Randy Wayne out of South Carolina or North Carolina. And then COVID happened. And then I guess going back from there, but ever since, I guess, 2019, like, just debuting on accident, everything else just came flooding in. So there's a lot that I've just explained to you. So that's how it came about.
No, you gave me an, like you said, detailed timeline of Mr. Hale's kind of career at this point for the most part. And I'd like to take I'd like to go back a little bit and So we're talking basically about 3 years, 2.5 years you're into this game.
About through 3 years and 2 months, like a little over 3 years.
Okay. And you spoke of how people saw you visually. Man, how many sessions have you had? Or how long have you been training? You're like, I've only trained like twice. And you're like, wait, what? We need blah, blah, blah. So the visual of people at the promotions that are working there are seeing you as a talent where you're just trying to get some training under you, but they're seeing what seems like either natural charisma or natural talent in the ring of what's going on, or a combination of both. Because again, I'm a jackass and I don't research nobody until after the fact, and then I go have some fun and look at some stuff. I just work half-ass backwards. That's just me.
It's all good.
But hearing you, the detailed timeline there, multiple people have looked at you in a natural way of like, you're pretty good, kid. Why don't you get in and fill this spot? Or, hey, can you do this? You got a license or whatever. Those questions just don't happen because they don't see anything in said talent. So they're said for a reason. And I can really appreciate that as a fan, that these guys are seeing a natural talent in you. And you're very, very young in your tenure at that point. And you're talking, you've won a championship 2019 or just a break of 2020?
Yeah, so I won my first heavyweight championship, and so let's see. I started training my first ever wrestling match was August 11th of 2018. Had 3 matches in Kentucky, then moved down to Georgia. I guess the January of 19 was my first show on accident. Then it led into once a month storylines down the road. Won in November of 2019, my first ever heavyweight championship. And then I defended it against now he's Preston Vance on AEW. So I defended it against him, lost it to Randy Wayne in February. COVID hit, so we didn't run anymore in the shows the rest of the year. And then January of 2021, it was vacant for a while, so it was me. So I ended up being in the championship spot to see if I could win it, and I won it. So I was 2-time heavyweight champion. Dropped it in May, which we haven't ran since. And then I became a Pro Wrestling Union heavyweight champion in June of this year. And it's cool because I ended up dropping it to, funny enough, again, Randy Wayne, which actually won it off of him in June. But no, the title itself, it looks like it's got the same replica design of the NWA heavyweight championship belt. So it's really cool.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've only won 2. I'm a 2-time APCW heavyweight champion and a 1-time PW heavyweight champion.
In a short career, that's already a few accolades that you've got under your belt. I mean, that's amazing because sometimes, I mean, we see guys that never win champion. And I mean, I'm talking guys that have been in business for, I'll even go back, they talk about how come these guys never won the big championship in the WWE, being like the guys of like a Roddy Piper or I mean, the list goes on and on. But that's what I'm saying. Like, you've gotten some gold and acclimates underneath under your brand, under your stock, which raises it a little more as a wrestler. And you can, hey, I've got this under my belt. I've got this. This is on my resume right here. So that's awesome. From fan to wrestler, that's awesome having those. Because, I mean, let's be honest, those help you with your resume when you're looking for work in other promotions and such. And because then it doesn't make you look like a slouch, like you're just kind of not doing anything. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
We spoke of kind of a very smidge off camera about character, and on STP, that's one of my big focal points is the character of said talent. But you seem to be one of these guys or girls that come out and maybe amplify your persona on 1,000 or 1,000,000 or with lightning or however you want to say it. You seem to have taken Landon Hale, come out as your own persona and just juiced it up for wrestling. Is that correct on saying?
Yes, sir. Yeah. So it's more of just myself. It's like everyone has like their gimmick and it works for them. Like one of the famous ones, The Undertaker. And there's like a lot of examples that I can just name off that have worked with their gimmick. For me, it's just like, and this is like, I don't know if it's a good example, like John Cena, like he's just himself amplified, and that's and like
Yeah.
and again, like some people they say like you have to go with the character in order for you to get yourself over. For me, it's just like because when people ask me all the time, because like I'm a high flyer, but I can also do very technical and ground and pound and strong style stuff like that. And they're like, are you trained in any other background? Like, no, I just like not really trained in anything. Like this is just myself. I grew up loving wrestling, wrestled against my stuffed Kevin Nash doll and Spider-Man doll, and just fighting the hell out of them. And, that's literally it. So it's just myself just bringing the energy, because it is like a very cliche, like character. It's just, it's myself growing up in the mountains of Eastern Kentucky. Not, I mean, like I came from a great family. My mom raised both me and my sister by herself for I guess March will be 21 years that she's raised us by herself alone. And so and so she's one of my biggest role models, her and my mama. And it's definitely one of those things where it's myself, and it's like cliche saying of you can do anything you set your mind to. But it's like I'm living proof that you can make anything happen if you want it to, if you want it bad enough, and you're willing to get out of whatever funk you're in, whatever type of situation you're in. You can get out of it, and you can do anything you set your mind to. And that's something that I try to perceive to myself, is that I'm out here performing in front of people because I love doing this. It gives me that adrenaline rush. It gives me something that I can say that this is my, it's kind of like whenever kids are little, they're like, oh, I dream of being a doctor. I dream of, playing in the NBA, or I dream of, being an astronaut. This is kind of like that. I want to be a professional wrestler, but I'm living it now a little bit later than what I expect, because right now I'm 28, and I started when I was 24. So it's kind of like, just like, because you see people start training at 14 and 15 and 18, and they're very young. I actually went to a training school where there's a girl that's wrestling, and she's starting at 13. And so it's kind of like, I'm actually glad that I'm doing it at the age that I am now, just because it does do a little bit of wear and tear on your body, and a lot of the energy. I have a lot of hyperactive energy whenever you see me. So it's like, whenever you see me in the ring, I'm glad that I didn't start. I guess it's kind of a blessing in disguise. And I thank God that I didn't start at 18, because I felt like, being 10 years in the business, it won't have so much, like, I'll have a little bit more wear and tear on my body than I do right now, which I expect growing older with my career. But, as of right now, with the stuff that I do, I'm really very fortunate, very blessed that I get to, do what I can, and just, again, be myself, just be like, hey, like, this is me. I'm trying to be the best version that I can of myself. And one of the guys that I did this whole sharing thing of like people do on Facebook, when it's like, oh, here we go, like what's your first impression of me? And one of the guys, I won't mention his name, but I mean, I don't think he cares. Dave Foster of PWX, he was a commentator, and like I said, first impression, he goes, a true natural white meat baby face. And I'm like, I take that as a very good compliment, because I don't expect, I mean, I think it's kind of like that since with John Cena, you never expect him to turn heel. And that's like me. Like, you never expect me to be a bad guy at the end of the day, regardless if you yay me or boo me. I'm just there doing what I love to do. And just as long as I can make you happy, or make your son or daughter happy, or make whoever, like your husband, wife, mom, dad, if I can make them happy and make it their money's worth, that's all that matters. And those are the moments too. It's like, funny enough, and like, I didn't even mention this, but like, I actually wrestled a couple of times in Massachusetts during my little break. So I wrestled for Chaotic on Friday. It was like, I don't know, I'm saying Friday as if it happened last Friday. No, I wrestled I wrestled at Chaotic on a Friday, and then the next night I wrestled at Atlantic Pro Wrestling. And wrestling at Atlantic Pro Wrestling, I was there, wrestled a great match against Owen Brody, and so we wrestled like a 20-minute Broadway, and then after that, everyone chanted, "Please come back." And that's the feeling that I want, is that when I feel like I'm wanted and feel like people want to see me, because there's others that really couldn't give a shit about you at the end of the day. But if I know that I put my heart and soul into something that I do, and that the people can appreciate it, then I know that I'm doing my job right. And then if it doesn't resonate with the fans that I'm working, or that I'm wrestling on that stage with, it's like, back to the drawing board. Let's see what I can do different there. But in the meantime, I'm still staying as true as I can, because that's all I can do for myself.
Another topic that I always love to discuss is the connection with the fans coming through the curtain, making that connection, doing the dance of fan performer. And it's hard in many of the talents' careers where sometimes it doesn't happen until 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years into their career to where they finally make that connection somehow, or found, changed, and evolved in their persona or gimmick, if you will, and change and try to do something different, and then found that connection. However, it comes about. But you have spoken so much about the crowd and family within said crowd, and it seems like you've already made that connection very young in your career, pretty much almost throughout. It seems because of the natural charisma, the natural in-ring that seems people have seen, and from your description, and you take that, you embrace it, you come through that curtain, especially with charisma, baby face all day. You can, and you seem to be doing a fine job connecting with the fans. And what really pisses me off about what you were speaking about being here in Massachusetts and your 2 dates, I went to APW's previous show. And I was gonna go to this one, but it legit is like almost a 3-hour ride. Well, actually, it is a 3 hour. It's 2 hours and 59 minutes for me.
Gotcha.
So for me to go to APW would have been a little bit of a haul. So I sat back on that one, but I was at the previous one, and for you to say that you were at their last one, especially in a nice Broadway.
Yeah, I was there in June. It was their June show, and I wrestled Owen Brody for the New England title.
All right. Well, APW, I love what they're doing over there. They have a great setup. I love everything they've got going on. Now, I know we have jawed, and there are so many more topics that I could be throwing at you, but we're about 45 minutes deep, and I know we're wanting to run about an hour-ish, if so. So before we do go further, maybe I can bring you back in another 6 months or so, and we can get some more out of Mr. Hale, because there's so much more to talk about. Maybe that's a possibility if we can, because we have, boys and girls, he didn't hang up on me. We are 45 minutes, so that's a good thing. So maybe we can have a return of Mr. Hale.
Absolutely. You're, I mean, like up in the Northeast, right? Is that what you're? Oh, like returning, like
returning on STP on the show.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd be more than honored. Yeah, absolutely. I love talking and just like getting, like, because I understand that there's only a certain amount of questions and statements that you can make. And again, like I definitely want to like help you out as well. Definitely want to help out people that's doing podcasts or interviews and talks, and we both work together, and it's definitely something that I would like to. There's definitely something I would like to do in the future. So yeah, anytime you want to bring me back, please, I'm more than honored.
That would be amazing, because I see a bright future for one, Mr. Hale. Now you did go with your, is that, I mean, we have been pulling the curtain back. Is that is your real name?
Yes, it's my real name, Landon Hale, Kane, like the wrestler.
So you've really just taken yourself and embraced with what you're doing. I've seen you got some new merch that just came out. Congrats. We always love new merch. It's like Christmas when you get new merch. I mean, that's always amazing.
Thank you.
We'll get the deets on that at the tail end of that, where you can find that fine merch. The gear. What have you got going on with the gear? Because the way we've been discussing, and again, I haven't done no research. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm an asshole on that one. But the gear, what are you presenting when you come through the curtain? Because I'm assuming you're not coming out with a t-shirt and jeans, and you're not half-assing this. You're taking this and embracing it. So what have you got going on with the gear, and who makes it? Because if any of the talent that are watching this maybe are looking for gear makers, we always like to mention gear makers.
Absolutely, yeah. So the gear that I come out in is it's the photo that it was shared on. It's the photo that you used to share on the Facebook page. Yeah. So
okay.
It's again, and I try to keep it to my, like, I guess, how do I explain this? It's like I try to be like a real life superhero gimmick, if that makes sense. So again, like myself, but just like I want to wrestle for the people that physically or mentally can't do it. I want to wrestle for the kids that want to grow up to look up to somebody. I want to wrestle for the mom and dads that work 40 hours a week, and that's, they just want to take a load off and just be able to come to a show and just enjoy themselves. That's what I do it for. I pour my heart and soul out to those people because I understand how it is throughout a work week and throughout, what's going on in a busy life. And that's something that I present. So myself, I come out in a regular shirt and it'll have the Landon Hale on it from Pikeville, Kentucky, which I say that I'm from Pikeville, and that's kind of like I'm from I'm from a small town called Harold, Kentucky, but I say Pikeville because it's more of a well-known city, or like an easy look up city. It's kind of like saying that you're from Fort Lauderdale, but you say you're from Miami, Florida. That sort of deal. So yeah, so I come out in a t-shirt. I do come out in like a superhero type like design or gear. And the lady that made it, her name on Facebook, she goes by Gear Gal. Shout out to her for the gear, and she's done a great job with it. She also helps makes like Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson's gear. So she's definitely someone, if you want to,
Nice.
it's definitely someone you definitely want to look up to make your gear. But yeah, I have baby blue with the gold designs, kind of like a tri or like a diamond going down the sides. And then I have black and gold with the L symbolizing my name. That's why I throw up the L and also light it up. And so it's kind of like that type of design. And then everything, it's always zigzag down into the kick pads. And I'm thinking about because again, I can't really spend much of my money because again, I don't mind saying this, like, saving up for the wedding with me and my fiance. But once I do, I'm definitely going to get like a different color set, not just the same color. And funny story, and I don't mean to call out one of my buddies because I love him to death, but we had a wrestling show, and usually another thing too is, you make sure you don't wear the same color gear as your opponent. So I've done my research on a lot of my opponents when I go up against them. I was like, oh, I noticed he has light blue gear on. I'm like, hey man, I only got light blue gear, and I was giving a heads up because I've seen him wear both light blue gear and like black gear. And he goes, okay, man, no problem. You know what I'm about to say now. You know what he wears? The light blue. So I had to come out and be like, hey, like, and luckily it's face versus face. I was like, hey, maybe we can like become a tag team later. So but yeah, I was thinking about like definitely getting like the cool superhero looks. And the funny thing is, again, this goes back to my fiance being a great supporter. She actually designed the pants that I was wearing. So
oh wow.
Yes. Yeah. So she drew it out, and Gear Gal brought it to life. So shout out to both of them.
Wow, that is kick-ass right there. That is so cool, man.
Thank you.
You did mention she's a wrestler or was a wrestler, or
no, not even a wrestler at all. She's never gotten into wrestling. This is the first time that she's ever seen me wrestle.
That's correct.
Yeah,
yes, you did say a cousin or something was a wrestler.
Yeah, my cousin who's in the Marines, he used to be a wrestler. Gotcha. And then when he enlisted, he stopped wrestling. Yeah.
Sorry, I kind of intertwined. That's what happens though when you don't write anything down.
It's all good, my man. I understand completely.
So before I let you go, because I know we have all got stuff to do. You're busy, man. You're very busy, way busier than I am. Believe me, boys and girls. What do you do on your downtime? And I know you've got school, but like to get away from wrestling, are you looking at more wrestling, or do you like to get away from wrestling at all? And maybe do you have a hobby that you try to kind of maybe get your mind off of stuff, maybe art or anything?
Yeah, so during the days or during the times that I have off of wrestling and I'm to myself, like I'll watch more wrestling and just be like have ideas because you like just like chiropractic or going to school, you want to or like reading, you want to learn more, and so you dive deep into it. So like I'll study different films, whether it's new stuff like you would see on NXT, AEW, Lucha stuff, or old school stuff. Like I would watch some like old British wrestling or some of like the territory days. And so I would watch a lot of that type of wrestling just to see what I can bring back. And, like I'll study and see what I can do and then maybe use it for the next training session that I have. And so like other times, if I'm not doing that, I'm watching TV. I really don't watch a lot of TV. I really just watch like Hulu and Netflix. I'll watch dumb stuff like Family Guy and Rick and Morty. I'm a very basic person. I also will play Nintendo 64 once I get the freaking wire fixed and hooked up. But yeah, I'll play. I've never played like a PlayStation or like an Xbox like online game, so I just stick with the old school stuff. And then like sometimes whenever I'm back home, I'll play the piano and I'll sing. I played piano for 10 years, and I've sang throughout. Funny enough, I actually went to a community college to where I was singing on a scholarship. So like I would sing for
Oh,
them,
wow.
and so like we would do like these events, kind of like American Idol, but we would go to different schools and we would be judges, and then we'd also do like little performances, kind of like wrestling. Like you'd go to different schools, and you would sing for these kids or the school or whatever. And so and that got me a scholarship. So I was very fortunate enough that I was able to sing my way through college to do.
Wow.
Yeah,
That
or at
is
least, at least,
awesome, man.
or at least community college. I mean, it was community college. I went so
Hey,
yeah, so I went like community college or 3 years, got my associates in science, then went to Morehead State 3.5 years, and then got my bachelor's in exercise science. And in 3 months, and it's creeping up on me fast, I'm getting my doctorate in chiropractic. So
that is amazing. Hey, and they always say if you're gonna try to utilize wrestling as a livelihood, before you do that, you got to have a plan B, because you never know where your wrestling career is going to take you. Even if it can bring you to these higher platforms, being the major companies, you still never know. So having that plan B is always there. Now, is that what you kind of want to do with wrestling? Are you in this to go to these higher platforms and make a livelihood for your family? Is that what this is all about?
yeah, it's definitely one of those things that, like, again, where I just started right before I came down to chiropractic school. Now, if it was one of those things where like I didn't go to chiropractic, I think everything intertwines, and like I'm a big believer in God, where it's like God works in mysterious ways when it comes to like things work out in different ways. So it's like I came down to Georgia because of school, but also at the same time I was following my dream, starting off in Kentucky. Come down, found a connection from Mike Sampson to Robert Gibson to be able to be in the scene of everything. And like my goal right now is like I use this like scenario all the time because a lot of people ask me about my character, and some people are like, oh, we're gonna use your chiropractic gimmick for it. It's like, no, like like Britt Baker, it's like yeah, like Britt Baker, she's a dentist and she's also a wrestler, but I don't want to utilize myself as like, hey, I'm Landon Hale, I'm here to break your back, but also too, come into my office, we take Medicare, we take cash, I don't, that's too cliche for me, and I'm like, I'm myself, but damn, I don't want to be that myself, I guess. But no, I think I know everyone gets that all the time. I adjust
That
people
is
by day and I
awesome.
break their backs by night. And then
Yes.
I could be a heel, and this is a side note. Like I could be a heel and just like pull a card out of my back pocket. No, like I'll adjust them in the middle of the ring and then just adjust them, and they're like, yay! And then like here's my card. I'll see you in the office. They're like, no, move. It's like, oh, we don't take your. I'm pretty sure we don't take your insurance. Like just something dumb like that. But no, like at the end, but like everyone though has like their shtick. So it's like Alex Shelley, for example. He's a physical therapist, but he doesn't use that towards his
Right.
wrestling. Davey
Right.
Richards, he's an EMT, but he doesn't,
EMT.
and he's also a teacher as well, but he doesn't use that. And I've seen like Davey Richards make a quote too, saying that he's like he doesn't want to get signed anywhere, and that's just because he's doing well with wrestling, and he's also a father and a husband, and it's kind of like being on the road so many times. Like even with AEW, regardless if it's one time a week, but there's still a lot of travel, and he's still working, and it's like,
Right.
hey, I'm working Monday, Tuesday, but let's say he flies out Tuesday night to be there Wednesday and spends all day Wednesday, and then flies back out Thursday morning. That's kind of like a situation that I'm in where it's like I feel like if I rush the process, that I'm not going to enjoy myself because I see. And again, everyone fluctuates in different flows. It's like you have someone who's been wrestling for 15 plus years and is finally getting a break versus someone like example Daniel Garcia, who's only wrestled for maybe like 2, 3, 4 years, maybe less. I don't know, but he's so talented and he's already signed with AEW. There's just different ebbs and flows of like when your time is going to be. So for me, it's like I want to take my time with wrestling because I feel like if I try to rush it to where I just sign my name on a dotted line, I'm not going to enjoy myself. So I want to definitely take in everything, soak everything in like a sponge. And again, I'm 3 years in and I'm about to be a doctor, and it's kind of like I'm not shitting on wrestling in that aspect of like, oh, like I'm better than it, but because that's a dream of mine. But like if I could be able to, work as a chiropractor throughout the week and then be able to wrestle on the weekends whenever I can, and then, again, like I definitely plan to having like 1 or 2 kids in the future. Hopefully by that time, it's like I could be able to at least set a schedule to where if I do wrestle once a week for AEW, or if I do wrestle for MLW whenever they have their, shows, when they have their tapings, there's just a
Right.
lot that goes on, but I definitely want to be able to do both. Now, again, everyone's time's going to come when it comes to wrestling, and I don't expect myself to wrestle at 50 or 55, and who knows, because a lot of people, once they get into wrestling, they keep going. So for me, only time will tell. But right now, I'm just riding the wave and just seeing where it takes me. Because again, I'm just very thankful in the position that I'm at right now. I'm very thankful, very, very blessed.
Uh, you talk smart, you think smart when it comes to wrestling and life both. This hour has been absolutely amazing, and we've only there's probably scratched some of the surface with Mr. Hale tonight. Before I do let you go, though, because you're a new talent to me. We don't know if the fans that are watching, or maybe some of the performers that might be watching, want to check out Mr. Hale, see some footage, check out your social media. Give us all of those kind of cool details before I let you go, my friend.
Absolutely. So you can find me on Facebook. It's Landon Hale 3. I think that's my personal page. And again, this goes back to like this little sidebar as well. Like I love my fans as much as the next person a wrestler loves their fans. My thing is that I do have a personal life, even though it's Landon Hale wrestler versus Landon Hale person, and I do have like both a friend account and fan page. So if you see a friend page and I don't know who you are, please like the fan page. And I'm only asking this just because if you are a fan of mine, I deeply appreciate the support. But there is a fine line between being a fan and then getting in my personal life. So, like, I consider you a friend. So I mean, I really could care less if you had me on
Oh,
as a friend or not. Absolutely. But yeah, so Landon Hale 3 on Facebook, Landon Hale 3 on Instagram, at Hale Yeah 3, HALEYEAH 3, because I'm a punny person. And then you can go on YouTube and you can type in Landon Hale Wrestling and you should be able to see my account. I believe it's Landon Hale or Landon Hale 3. If you type in Landon Hale Pro Wrestler, you should be able to see my highlight films. You should be able to see a bunch of my updated wrestling shows from. You should be able to see some from like back in 2019 when I started up until just recently. And then you can also support me by buying a shirt at Pro Wrestling Tees. I just opened up a shop. Type in prowrestlingtees.com/Landon Hale, and I do have 2 shirts that you're able to support. And
nice.
let's light it up. Absolutely.
Yes. What a fantastic and so informational. What an hour we had with Mr. Hale, boys and girls. This was amazing. This was way deeper than I think most talent has ever given me, because all they want to do is yell at me because I boo them all the time and stuff like that. So we had such a fine hour with Mr. Hale. I cannot thank you enough for setting some time aside, and you're and I did not realize this, so very busy life, my man. Thank you so much for taking this time.
Hey, absolutely, and hopefully, like I don't know how long you extend your hours of like your time when it comes to podcasts, or you said it's not a podcast, but like just conversations. But if there's ever a time to where I have more time in the hour to or in the day to where I can be able to talk to you more than an hour, by all means, I'll talk your ear
Oh,
off, brother.
that'd be awesome, because they know that I can chit chat a little bit. We have a
Absolutely.
lot of fun. ah, what a great hour. This was Stirring the Pot with Don Kincaid and my very special guest, Landon Hale. Thank you once more, my friend.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.